Dobroveče, poštovani gledalci. Evropa se nalazi na prekretnici koja će odrediti njenu putanju u narednim godinama i decenijama. Podjele, razlike, populizam, radikalizam i različite brzine su današnjica Evrope. Kakva će joj biti budućnost? Ko će predvoditi Evropsku komisiju, Evropsko vijeće i ima li mjesta za Zapadni Balkan u takvoj Evropskoj uniji? Pitanja su za našeg večerašnjeg gosta, predsjednika ALDE partije i zastupnika u Evropskom parlamentu Hans van Baalena. Mr. Baalen, welcome to N1 program.
Thank you.
You're here in Bosnia and Hercegovina not for the first time. You've been here almost a decade and a half ago when you were in a different position as a soldier, not as a politician, but now you're here as a politician, president of ALDE party and a member of European Parliament. How do you see the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina today?
Well, happily people are not fighting amongst themselves, but there is real stagnation. I was here, as you said, as a peacekeeping soldier of NATO in Bugojno, but I was here frequently with Paddy Ashdown, and there were days of hope, but it's all stagnations. You have the national level, you have the entity level, you have the canton level, you have so many prime ministers, but this should be a place which is also a good place for young Bosnians, and therefore there is renewal. There should be a renewal, and I'm here to help Naša stranka to become stronger and to support them.
Let me ask you this. You follow Bosnia and Herzegovina for a long time, and you're a member of the AFET, of a Foreign Affairs Committee of the European Parliament, and that's the place where most of the reports about Bosnia and Herzegovina have been discussed, and you have discussions with High Representative Vice President Mogherini and Commissioner Hahn and others when visited from here, from Bosnia and Herzegovina. How do you see political situation today in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and what are our bigger problems when you look us from the European side?
First of all, Bosnia must become an efficient state. So therefore, I think we need reform here. Too many governments, too many clashes between levels, etc. So it has to be an efficient state. Secondly, Bosnia, like other states, have to fight corruption, illegal ways of doing, like with the mafia, etc. So there should be a real modern Bosnian state. That state could join the European Union. For myself, I say Bosnia is Europe, so at a certain moment it should be able to be a member of the European Union, to have MEPs, etc. But then you have to fulfill criteria of good governance. And I think that all parties here in Bosnia should work towards good governance, fighting corruption, fighting mafia, etc. That would be key to join the EU.
And let me ask you this then. We are now on the EU path, but we are waiting for so long to get the candidacy status, mainly because of our politicians here in Bosnia and Herzegovina who haven't answered on all those questions from the European Commission for a very long time. We are expecting the opinion of the European Commission very soon to be brought up and probably will be presented at the AFET before the elections or just after the elections next week. Do you think that Bosnia and Herzegovina is ready to be a candidate state?
At this moment, all the questions has to be answered. So I don't think that at this moment Bosnia is ready. But if Bosnia works hard, and we from the European Union side as well, it could be done maybe next year or the year after. And that would be an immense step. And what you see, I'm ready to defend that step if questions are answered and we have a perspective of an efficient and working state of Bosnia. If we look at other countries, Switzerland, Belgium, also their government system is very complicated. You can hardly understand it, but they function, these states. And I think that that's also a possibility for Bosnia to reform, to change the state structure, to be more efficient. And then I see candidate membership, then I see in the longer run membership.
But who's to be blamed for this situation? Europeans, Bosnians, or both sides?
Well, easy is always to say both sides. If you want to join a club, the European Union, there are rules which are important, not only on paper, but they really work. And I say this moment, Bosnia had not proved that it's able to work as a modern, efficient state. With a modern police force which works together, a fiscal authority which works together. So that has to be done. And then I say the step is easy for candidacy, easy for negotiations, easier for having membership. So I said the Bosnian side must do a lot more.
But can we do that if we have Mr. Milorad Dodik in presidency who's challenging almost everything what was done in the reforms when it comes to Bosnia and Herzegovina? He even negates that Bosnia and Herzegovina can be saved as a Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Well, I want also to recognize what has been done. So if I compare it with the first time I was here as a soldier, and now a lot in a positive way has been done. There is no fighting anymore, there is more cooperation. We have to acknowledge that as well. But again, to enter into a union or a club, you have to be certain that you can do this, that you are able to commit and to execute all European rules. That's not easy, not even for a long-standing member of the Netherlands from where I come. Also, we still make our mistakes. So the Bosnian state must be able to use the European legislation, the competence laws, etc., competition, because we don't want that your whole industry and agriculture will suffer by the European rules. So more knowledge is necessary. A better administrative government, a better bureaucracy is necessary.
But let me ask you this. Bosnia and Herzegovina has problems with nationalism, ethno-nationalism, divisions between Bosniaks, Serbs and Croats and others. And the human rights are not respected. Your own committee, AFET, has repeated for so many times that the issues of Sejdić-Finci, other rules by European courts of human rights, also situation with Mostar where we don't have elections for more than a decade now, are the issues which need to be resolved. Do you expect that the governments like this and formed like this in this situation with divisions on the ethnic basis can do that and move Bosnia and Herzegovina forward?
Well, I don't believe in ethnical political parties. I believe parties who are on the right or the left or the center, more free market or less, and not ethnic parties. Of course, that has to be decided by the people here. We can't decide it as a democracy if you have those parties. I'm more for multi-ethnic or non-ethnic parties. So I hope that the electorate, the people who vote in this country, will vote for non-ethnic or multi-ethnic parties. I hope that also those who are maybe ethnic parties realize that you can only do it together. So more cooperation. I come from a country which previously was partly Roman Catholic, many denominations of Protestants, very many, and some people had not a religious opinion. But in the end, we all work together. We said we have to save this country from the water. You know, we have to build dikes, etc. And there are not Catholic dikes or Protestant dikes. We should do it together. This is in our veins, in our DNA. And this was a country, like the whole Balkans, where there was a kind of ethnic peace that has been broken, but it can be restored. So I hope also for the ethnic parties that they open up.
Before we move to talk about the other parts of the Balkans, let me ask you this. You mentioned the late Lord Ashdown, and you said that you knew him. But now we have here High Representative Valentin Inzko, who writes press statements and saying that he's concerned about the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but he doesn't deploy all the tools available to him, like bone powers and everything else, which was used in the the future by Schwarzschilling and Pedi Ashdown. Do you think that he should start using them again and maybe pressuring a bit the local leaders here in Bosnia and Herzegovina to start doing more, or to start thinking about Bosnian population here, because we see that the people are leaving more and more to live in Germany and Holland and the other countries of the Western Europe?
We get the best of your people. That's fine for us, but the brain drain is bad for Bosnia. Yes, there should be more use the powers available. The difference between when I worked with Pedi Ashdown many years ago, that then the situation could have been back of fighting. That was an option. I think that's no longer an option. It's now how to build this country. So we can't use you as a kind of protectorate. It cannot be that there is a protector who says you should do this. But behind closed doors, he can do more, like Ashton did. But in the end, you're not a protectorate. And we shouldn't have a Lord Protector governing you. It should be the Bosnian people themselves, but he can do more.
Let me ask you this. We have two positive examples in the Western Balkans at the moment, North Macedonia and Albania. Just recently, North Macedonia is basically opening all the possible doors of the European Union, NATO pact. They signed agreement in Prespa with Greece, and they solved the issue after 30 years of their name. Just recently in Tirana, High Representative Mogherini have said that Albania has done the best reform of the judicial system in this part of Europe. Do you believe that they are going to get the green light to start accession negotiations in June?
I would be in favor of this. Especially, I know Northern Macedonia quite well. Been there many times, worked with political parties from Zaev to Goran Milevski of the Liberals. So I think that we should open the accession talks with Northern Macedonia. I know Albania less, I must be honest. And crime, let me say, is a big issue. Organized crime has nothing to do with the government, but the fact that the government is not able to suppress it. So I think the situation there is more difficult, but in the end, also this country should be given the opportunity to open accession talks, or we should open accession talks. Because what are you otherwise offering? If you say, we offer you stagnation, things will not change. So we should offer them perspective. And I've spoken out on this. And I think that the key is in Paris. Because I know also that the Dutch government is very critical and the German government, but I think if Macron would rethink, there would be a start of those talks. And we should talk with Macron on this.
Well, before we move to Macron and Merkel and their summits in regarding of Western Balkans, let me ask you this. Serbia and Kosovo, that's a trouble which troubles Balkans for more than 30 years, almost 40 years now. There is no solution in sight because Pristina is making their own decisions with the tariffs of 100% on goods from Bosnia and Serbia. Serbia doesn't want to accept that the Kosovo is independent. Can we see a resolution of that problem in the near future?
Only if there is new political leadership in Serbia. Because I've talked to many politicians, a few are ready to be open to say, well, morally we have lost Kosovo. By the genocide, etc. So you can't expect Bosnia to go back to be a province of Serbia. That's not possible, but only a few say so. I agree with them. Serbia, it is a very difficult step, but has to recognize the independence of Kosovo. And then the situation is open. And also Serbia itself has reformed, so EU perspective is there, not today, but it's there. So I think Bosnia should have its independence.
Kosovo, you mean?
Sorry, Kosovo should have its independence, and Serbia has to work with an independent Kosovo.
Do you agree with the opinions said by many in recent times that the current regime in Serbia by Aleksandar Vučić is turning towards authoritarian regime and almost close to one as Viktor Orban's in Hungary?
You could say that, and also the relationship with Putin, etc., are of course not helping. And I respect Serbia, but it should modernize itself. If you look at the capital, Belgrade, it is a modernizing city, but Putin is not the way out. It's not the way in the European Union. Putin is stagnation. So I would say, Serbia, take your own responsibility and accept Kosovo as an independent country, and then we can do everything to talk about, to promote Serbia also in the European Union.
Montenegro at the moment is the most leading country when it comes to the European integration. The president, Milo Đukanović, is there for almost 30 years,
yes,
and he leads the country. They are a member of NATO. Do you think that they are next 28th or 29th member of the European Union if ever Great Britain leaves due to Brexit, the European Union?
Well, also here you have the discussion about corruption. You have the discussion about, is the state really functioning? I like the country. I've been there many times. So with a renewal of the system, new people, younger people who are more open, fighting the corruption, I think they will be a member, or the accession talks will start. But that could take also 1 or 2 years. But there has to be a renewal in this country as well.
You have mentioned just recently Emmanuel Macron, and I mentioned Chancellor Merkel. They organized the summit of the Western Balkan countries in Berlin recently. The next one is in July in Paris. Do you think that the European Union, supported by Chancellor Merkel and President Macron, can change the situation here in the Western Balkans and resolve all these issues, including Bosnia, Serbia, and Kosovo, and Macedonia, and Albania?
First of all, I think that Romania and Bulgaria should be allowed into the Schengen zone because they qualify. And if we say rules are rules, they qualify. You can start with the harbors, the international airports, but they qualify. So I hope that they can enter Schengen. Secondly, a first big gesture would be to start accession talks with Northern Macedonia as soon as possible. Because also here you see the problem, France and a little bit Merkel less, but creates, this country has reformed itself in a short time to a democracy, a very open democracy. They have solved their ethnic problems, they have solved their political problems. So now we should accept that and give them perspective. And it means starting the negotiation is not being member today or when the negotiation, it takes time. But we should give this perspective. So if Merkel and Macron would be open to Schengen for Bulgaria and Romania and for accession talks with Northern Macedonia, that would be an immense step. And then other steps will follow. They can't arrange everything, but this is a first step which will be appreciated also in this region.
You have mentioned President Putin of Russia. We are hearing from the European Union, we are hearing from other sides that Russia, China, Turkey are malignant players when it comes to the Western Balkans. Do you think that those countries, the foreign players here, can make more problems here in the Western Balkans, and how we can tackle those problems? And what should the European Union do to stop them meddling here in the Western Balkans?
First, what we let me say, the EU, the European Union should do is, I say, the steps concerning Schengen, concerning accession talks, giving a perspective. Then I'm convinced that the countries in the region would rather sit with the EU and be in the EU than being with Putin. So perspective should be offered. Secondly, all the help Putin, Erdogan, Xi Jinping, the Chinese, offers are always conditional. So you get money, they buy a port, but in the end they come with Chinese workers. So the cooperation with these three countries is not that fine for the Western Balkans either. So better with the EU, and we should together create this future. If we don't create anything, yeah, what have governments then to do? They go probably to the three gentlemen I mentioned.
Yeah. Let me ask you this before we move to the issues of what's going to happen with Europe after 2030 to 26th May of this year. We have a situation here with the far right. Mr. Orban is very close to Mr. Vučić, but he's also close to Mr. Dodik in Bosnia and Hercegovina. In that same area of a far right, we have Heinz Christian Strache, the former vice chancellor now of Austria, who have resigned due to corruption scandal. We have Mr. Salvini from Italy, and we have Ms. Le Pen from France. They are all gathering together. How afraid we should be of that far right and the politics which they are proposing, not only for the Western Balkans but also for the European Union and countries such as Hungary, Austria, Italy, France?
All those political leaders you mentioned are not looking forward to perspective, to solutions to problems. They're looking backward. They think that 50, 100 years ago things were better. That's not true, not for the average citizen. If people come here in a legal way into the European Union, I have no problem. They can't come illegally. But what does Mrs. Le Pen offer the French? Not really much. So in this case, I say I'm not afraid. But they could have a lot of votes in the European elections. I agree with you. It could be that there is a blocking minority in the European Parliament, so you can't legislate. And that is from the far right and the far left. Les extrêmes se touchent, the opposite sides come together. If you see the program of Le Pen and of the GUE, the left, the GUE doesn't discriminate, that's the difference. But on socio-economic terms, they're the same. So I hope that the votes for the extreme left and the extreme right will be lower than expected. But I fear that they have a strong force in the European Parliament. If you take the pro-European forces like ALDE together with Christian Democrats, honourable conservatives, Greens, etc., Social Democrats, there is, I think, a majority, a positive majority, but it's smaller. And if everybody in the centre works together, the voter thinks, I can vote for a Social Democrat, a Christian Democrat, a Liberal, what is the difference? That's also not a good issue. But in the end, let me be positive. Also, we in the Netherlands, we have this kind of extreme parties. Together they're around 12%. Okay, we can manage, I don't like 12%, but we can manage it, the democratic forces. So no, there will not be, let me say, a total disarray about Europe. It will not be that probably we don't have this blocking minority. So let me be optimist. If the Democrats, whatever their names are, work together, we can progress. Same here. If those who believe in non-ethnic or multi-ethnic democratic government, efficient government, also the changes will happen here.
Let me ask you this, when we are already talking about European elections, which will happen from 23rd to 26th of May, so that's the next weekend. Yeah. Who do you see as the largest political group in the new Parliamentary Assembly? Should that be EPP again and SD after them, and you place at the third or fourth place as you are now, or as the predictions are telling you that you will be ALDE group, the third or fourth political group in a parliament?
Well, first what should be done, that's up to the electorate, the voters, but if I look ALDE will grow itself from around 70, probably, knock on wood, 90, 95 seats. But l'Europe en marche, or better said, La République en marche for Macron, could have 20 or 30 seats. If you bring this together with ALDE, we could be number 2. I fear that this election we will not be number 1, but maybe in 5 years' time. So there will be a difference, there will be a force. Without the Christian Democrats, the EPP can't govern, and without the SD, the Social Democrats can't govern. So it looks that we are the kingmaker for the better. But we have to see Sunday, the 26th of May.
Let me ask you this. The new European Commission is coming in. How do you judge 5 years of Jean-Claude Juncker as the president of the European Commission, and what his European Commission that did good, what they did bad?
To be honest, we have to recognize that Juncker brought stability. You can say, is this enough? No, but in this turmoil of a financial economic crisis, he brought stability. We are now stronger on the economic side, the financial side, so a new crisis will not affect us as in 2008. So let's respect that. From the other way, the Commission has done not too much. There is not less but better regulation, but anyhow, it was a difficult period. Also, the Parliament didn't want to have too much legislation in the Member State. So I would say he has done a good job, by stability, but the new Commission must be more ambitious.
New President of the European Commission, Guy Verhofstadt, Manfred Weber, Margaret Vestager, Ska Keller, or somebody else, like Michel Barnier coming from the back?
Well, all could be in. I look also at a new generation, and I think that Margrethe Vestager, who is now the competition commissioner, has been a very good political leader in her own country, has been a very good commissioner. So if it's possible, I would vote for her. Manfred Weber is a man of integrity, but not with much experience. He was in the Bavarian parliament for, I think, 2 or 3 years. He has now been in the European Parliament. He has never been a national political leader, and you need this in your function as, well, some call it Prime Minister of the European Union, but let's say the President of the Commission. You need experience, and he lacks this. Anyhow, it depends how big his party is, whether his party, the EPP, can make an alliance, whether the European Council comes with his name as nomination. So nothing is clear. I don't have the crystal ball, but if I could decide, I would go for Margrethe Vestager.
Let me ask you this. European Council President Donald Tusk is outgoing president. There are many names in options. Someone are calling from your own Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, to be the new President of European Council. Jean-Claude Juncker is advocating so ferociously for Angela Merkel. Others are calling for Angela Merkel, but there are also several other names, including Margaret Vestager, to become the new President of European Council. Whom do you see as the potential new President of the European Council?
Well, the names you mention are all qualified. Mrs. Merkel, Chancellor Merkel, will not tell me, and maybe nobody, she will be telling it, could be a very good candidate, yes. But does she want it? I don't believe it, but she has never told me. So Mark Rutte, I don't believe that he has publicly spoken out that he is not wanting this function or another European function. He wants to bring his cabinet, his third cabinet, to the end of the race and not go away in between. So let me come back to you after the elections.
The one very interesting question here is that the many media in recent weeks and days are, let's say, talking or exploring a potential that your former colleague from the European Parliament, now at the position of Croatian Parliament, Andrej Plenković, could become the Vice President of the European Commission or first Vice President of the European Commission. Do you see Plenković now as a high official in the European Union hierarchy and leaving Croatia such as in this situation as it is?
I know Plenković very well because he was member of the European Parliament. We were together on election missions, monitoring missions to Ukraine. It could be because he is Prime Minister, he was member of the European Parliament, so he is qualified. But all depends, of course, does he want to leave his own country where he's Prime Minister or not? A little bit what Mark Rutte has the same issue. But he would be qualified to be in the Commission, absolutely.
Your own party, ALDE, will have candidates in Croatia. Now you have Ivan Jakovčić and Jozo Radoš. Mr. Jakovčić is retiring from European politics and probably from politics. Mr. Radoš is running again. Do you expect to see him in the next term?
Yes, there is a coalition called the Amsterdam Coalition of liberal parties. And together, I think that it's possible to have Jozo Radoš re-elected. So I hope for that because he has been a very good colleague, like Nino from Istria, but he decided to step down. We need those people because if the European group of ALDE doesn't include people from Central and Eastern Europe, we are not inclusive. So we need those people to join us again.
And let me ask you this also, former Yugoslavian country is Slovenia. You have one member of parliament in ALDE group, that's Dr. Ivo Weigl, but he also decided to retire. Do you expect that you will have another MEP from Slovenia after these elections?
Well, Ivo Weigl, also a very competent colleague, especially on foreign affairs. What we hope, there are 3 to 4 parties who are close to ALDE. We had hoped that they had one European list, but that didn't manage. So we hope probably it could be that from the 3 closest parties, a member of ALDE, we have maybe 2 or 3 MEPs. With a joint list, it could have been more, but let's go then for the 2 or the 3.
And let me ask you this at the end. Judging from your own words, we shouldn't be that much afraid from the far right at this point in the European Union, because the right, the good side, let me say, will win these elections and will have a majority in European Parliament. When you look towards the Western Balkans, you see our perspective in the European Union when it comes to all countries, but the most of the job is for us. But what would be your advice to young people here in the Western Balkans who are leaning towards European Union in this situation? Can we see a perspective here in the Western Balkans for the young people and to stop them to leave and for you to get best and we to keep the best here?
That is the best education, the best infrastructure here, so that it's enjoyable to work here, that you can raise a family. That has been done. So economic revival, and therefore the state must be efficient and non-ethnic. And then a lot of people will stay here, but they can be for a few years working with us, returning. That will be then a normal situation with perspective for the new generation. And it can happen, it will happen, but then we have to reform, also in Western Europe, but especially also here, make Bosnia work. And again, therefore I'm here to talk with Nazar Stranka and to help them.
Mr. van Baalen, thank you so much for your time, and I'm gonna for sure call you after the elections to see how your predictions were and what we can expect from the new European Commission when it comes to Western Balkans.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Čuli ste kakvu Evropu očekuje predsjednik ALDE-a, a kakvu Evropu žele građani Evropske unije vidjet ćemo na izborima koji će biti održani od 23. do 26. maja. Rezultate izbora ćete moći pratiti u našem programu. Do tada, doviđenja.